Just when we thought Wednesday couldn't get any more twisted and intense, Season 2 Part 2 has dropped and completely blown our minds. We start the season with Wednesday hunting down a serial killer, but by the finale, everything we thought we knew gets turned upside down in ways we never saw coming. The season finale is packed with so much information that your head might be spinning right now. That's why we've broken down everything that happened in Wednesday Season 2 Part 2's finale, and we're answering all those burning questions about the season's biggest plot points. Plus, we'll dive into how this ending sets up Season 3 and which characters are most likely to return. Before we jump in though, major spoiler warning for Wednesday Season 2 Part 2. Make sure you're all caught up before we continue. The Season 2 Part 2 finale breakdown. So here's what goes down in the finale. Wednesday, Morticia, and Gomez are on a desperate mission to find Pugsley, who got kidnapped by Slurp at the end of Episode 7. And according to Wednesday's latest premonition, Pugsley is destined to become the Addams family member who dies. Now here's where things get wild. Slurp isn't just some random zombie. He's actually Isaac Knight, this mad genius who created technology that can reverse an outcast's powers. This is the same tech that Augustus Stonehurst eventually stole for his Lois experiments. Isaac's plan? Use Pugsley as a power source to fire up his old machine and finally free his sister Frances from her hide abilities. Weems, who's still hanging around in spirit form, tells Morticia and Wednesday they need to connect with Grandmama using their psychic powers to figure out where Pugsley is being held. When they sit around the table, Wednesday gets hit with a vision of young Gomez and Morticia rolling Isaac's body into a grave. Here's the backstory that gets revealed. Gomez and Isaac were actually best friends at Nevermore. But Isaac betrayed Gomez by using his electric powers to test out the machine he developed to cure his sister Frances. When Morticia breaks into the lab to save Gomez, she ends up killing Isaac by chopping off his hand. But here's the kicker: the technology actually works because Gomez loses his electricity powers in the process. Morticia and Gomez end up burying Isaac under the skull tree, in a grave that was originally marked for Gomez. They covered up the murder because Augustus Stonehurst, the guy who built the lab for Isaac, was threatening them. When Morticia and Grandmama tell Wednesday to let them handle the rescue, she storms off. Classic Wednesday move. Meanwhile, Enid wants to help Wednesday, but she's stuck in the loop in cages. She has to do everything possible not to wolf out, or she'll be permanently trapped in her werewolf form. Wednesday promises to let her out in the morning, but then receives a skull tree snow globe from Isaac that just says midnight. So Wednesday and Thing head to the skull tree at midnight, planning to take Isaac down with a bow and arrow. But he's way too powerful. And then we get the most shocking reveal of all. Thing is actually Isaac's body. When Morticia cut off Isaac's hand that night, Thing was born. The letters in Night literally scramble to spell Thing, and Isaac reattaches him to his wrist. Isaac uses his powers to drop Wednesday into a deep grave and buries her alive. Agnes watches the whole thing while invisible but can't dig Wednesday out, so she calls Enid for help. Unfortunately, only a werewolf is strong enough to dig her out, so Enid voluntarily transforms under the full moon and claws Wednesday out just in time. Weems appears and warns them they're running out of time. Here's where Isaac's plan really kicks into gear. He starts his experiment, but uses Tyler as the test subject, and this was all orchestrated by Tyler's own mother, Frances. The machine successfully strips Tyler of his hide abilities, much to his horror. Wednesday breaks into the lab with an axe, and Tyler, who's in agony from the machine, actually begs her to kill him. Instead, she uses the axe to set him free, claiming her hand just slipped. But Wednesday knows the truth: the only way to defeat a hide is with another hide. So Frances and Tyler face off in their hide forms, while Wednesday frees Pugsley from the other side of the machine. While Isaac is distracted watching Tyler fight his mother, Wednesday smashes the machine with an axe and they all escape. The machine explodes, but not before Frances voluntarily falls to her death. Isaac uses his power to strangle Wednesday, but Thing regains consciousness and literally rips out Isaac's mechanical heart. Isaac collapses dead, and Thing grotesquely severs himself from Isaac's arm. When Wednesday gets back to her dorm, she discovers that Enid was captured on a wildlife camera somewhere in the woods. She thanks Weems for her guidance. Then we see Tyler visiting his mother's and father's graves, only for Professor Capri to suddenly appear and invite him to join a secret pack of hides. Plot twist: Capri has been half hide this entire time. The finale ends with Morticia giving Wednesday her Aunt Ophelia's diary, and we learn that Grandmama is keeping Ophelia locked away in a hidden chamber. Wednesday calls Uncle Fester, and the two head for the border to find Enid. What happens to Enid? So Enid discovers she's an alpha werewolf, which means if she transforms under the full moon, she could end up permanently stuck in her werewolf form. Even though the original plan was to stay in her Lupin chamber until dawn, Agnes recruits her to help save Wednesday. Since Enid can't dig Wednesday out with just her human claws, she voluntarily transforms into a werewolf to quickly get Wednesday out of that grave Isaac buried her in. Then she runs off into the woods. Agnes tells Wednesday that Enid was spotted on a wildlife camera near the border, so Wednesday and Uncle Fester head out to find her. Who is Slurp? This has to be the most shocking twist of the season. Slurp, Pugsley's pet zombie who we thought was just comic relief, ends up being the most important character of the entire season. Slurp is actually Isaac Knight, a mad genius who developed technology that can reverse outcast powers, all in an attempt to cure his sister Frances of being a Hyde. Back when Isaac was still a student at Nevermore, he recruited his roommate and best friend Gomez to help test the machine one night. Gomez had no idea it was a trap, and the machine started draining all of his electrical power. Morticia broke into the lab to save him, chopping off Isaac's hand and ultimately killing him. Afraid of what Augustus Stonehurst might do to them, Morticia and Gomez buried Isaac's body underneath the skull tree. When Wednesday accidentally freed all the Willow Hill patients in episode 4, Frances escaped and revealed herself to be Tyler's mother. Tyler spent his whole life thinking she was dead, but she was actually being held at Willow Hill and experimented on by Stonehurst. Isaac and Frances reunite and realize she's dying in her Hyde form without a master, so they decide to kidnap Pugsley to use his electrical powers to fire up the machine. But here's where it gets even crazier when they capture Pugsley and hook him up to the machine. Frances betrays Isaac and uses him as the main test subject. Her logic is that if the machine can reverse Tyler's Hyde condition, then it should work on her too. Wednesday storms into the lab and destroys their plans, but not before we learn that thing is literally the hand that Morticia severed that night. Isaac's schemes ultimately fail when Frances voluntarily falls to her death while in Hyde form. Thing regains his consciousness, reaches into Isaac's chest, and rips out his mechanical heart. Isaac dies. Thing detaches himself from the arm and returns to the Addams family. Is Principal Dort dead? Yes, and his death is pretty spectacular. Principal Dort reveals himself as the true leader behind the Morning Song cult that kept Bianca and her mother trapped for years. He's been using Bianca's mother as bait to force Bianca to siren song Grandmama into donating her entire fortune to Nevermore. Wednesday, with help from Invisible Agnes, figures out Dort's plan and teams up with Bianca to take him down in front of the entire school. Wednesday steals Dort's siren protection necklace, leaving him completely vulnerable to Bianca's power. At the gala, she commands him to tell the entire school who he really is, how he kidnapped Bianca's mother, blackmailed her into manipulating Grandmama, and killed the fake leader of Morning Song with his fire abilities. When Dort realizes what he's just confessed to, he takes Bianca hostage. But Ajax swoops in and uses his Gorgon powers to turn Dort to stone. The stone crumbles, putting a permanent end to Dort. What happens to Tyler? Tyler's story this season is absolutely heartbreaking. After learning that his own mother was willing to sacrifice him to save herself from her own Hyde abilities, the two face off in combat. This ultimately leads Frances to take her own life rather than continue suffering. At the end of the finale, we see Tyler visiting both his mother's and father's graves when Professor Capri suddenly appears. She tells Tyler she can save him, but he tells her he knows she's a werewolf and doesn't want another mother or master. Capri reveals there's a pack of Hydes he can join, where they can thrive in their powers without needing a master because of their unity. She also reveals that her father was a Hyde. The season ends with Capri and Tyler driving away from Nevermore in her car. Is Nevermore shut down for good? It definitely looks that way. Principal Larissa Weems was killed in Season 1, and instead of closing, the school quickly appointed Dort to take over. Dort decided the best way to keep Nevermore open was through a massive donation, so he threw the gala and had Bianca siren song both Morticia and Grandmama. The plan was to get Grandmama to leave her entire fortune to Nevermore, but Wednesday and Bianca foiled this scheme. After Dort gets turned to stone in front of the entire school, the academy is once again without a principal. According to Agnes, Nevermore is shutting down as a result. It's unclear exactly when, but it seems like Wednesday Season 2 ends in the middle of the school year due to the shutdown. How does this set up Season 3? The finale sets up 3 major plot lines for Season 3. First, and what will probably be the main storyline, is Wednesday and Uncle Fester heading out to find Enid in the woods and hopefully figure out how to return her to her human form. Second is the mystery of Aunt Ophelia and why Grandmama has been secretly keeping her locked away all these years. I don't think even Morticia knows about this. Third will follow Tyler and Professor Capri as she leads him far from Nevermore into a collective of other hides, which honestly sounds pretty terrifying. The characters most likely to return for Season 3 are Wednesday, obviously, Morticia, Gomez, Pugsley, Thing, Uncle Fester, Grandmama, Enid, Bianca, Ajax, Eugene, Professor Capri, Agnes, and Tyler. We might see Rosalind Rotwood again if Wednesday decides to visit her grave like she did in Season 2, Episode 4. And that's our complete breakdown of Wednesday Season 2 Part 2's wild finale. What did you think of all these twists? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more.